All right, how you guys doing today? This is Brian Mazique of Heavy Sports, and it is my pleasure to have on CBS Sports Radio Damon Amendolara. Amendolara, I'm sorry. How you doing today, Da?
I'm good, Bry. How you doing?
I am great. I am great. We're going to talk some Super Bowl and NFL action, and so I am eager to get your perspective on some of these things. It's been quite the interesting NFL season with the twists and turns of things that have affected the league in regards to COVID injuries and just the natural drama. But let's start off talking about the Super Bowl. Obviously, it's this Sunday. Is the Rams season a failure in your opinion if they don't win the big one on Sunday? So if they lose, what would you expect, to be the reason why? And is this all or nothing?
Totally. The Rams are built for winning a Super Bowl, nothing less. You don't pay Aaron Donald all of that money, one of the greatest defensive players ever. You don't trade multiple draft picks for Jalen Ramsey, multiple draft picks for Matthew Stafford, acquire Von Miller at the trade deadline, add Odell Beckham. You don't do all of that to get to a Super Bowl. You do all of that to win a Super Bowl. So, look, that's the stakes. The Rams raised them. They knew that going to Los Angeles meant they had to win to be anything reasonably interesting in LA. It's a town of winners. And if you don't win, they don't care. There's not those deep roots to Los Angeles after they had left LA for more than 20 years. So the Rams knew we have to win big, and win a Super Bowl. And the simple fact that a couple of years ago they got there and lost and immediately said, Jared Goff's not our guy, we got to upgrade there, tells you all you need to know. Just getting there is not enough for the Rams. They must win on Sunday to validate all these moves.
Makes sense. I mean, they are really scratching and clawing for a meaningful piece of the sports pie in LA. And I think they know that without winning big, it's not gonna be a successful attempt there. So if they do lose, though, what do you expect to be the biggest reason that they lose?
Well, there is a certain magic right now with Joe Burrow and the Bengals where, against all odds, they keep pulling rabbits out of hats. I mean, going on the road to Tennessee, they were underdogs. Tennessee was getting Derrick Henry back. The Titans had the bye, and lo and behold, it was the Titans who looked awful, and Ryan Tannehill who threw 3 interceptions and a bunch of field goals. Despite giving up 9 sacks, the Bengals were able to win that football game. They then go on the road to Arrowhead, where the Chiefs have the experience. They've got the home field advantage. Again, they're big favorites. They fall behind 21-3. Lo and behold, the Bengals chip away and find a way to win in overtime. There is just something about the fact that the Bengals don't know what they don't know. They're young, they're fun, they're really confident, and they don't realize they're not supposed to be this far already. I don't think they realize that this is not the way it's supposed to go. So that looseness and that confidence, I think, would be the reason, because I could see the Rams playing tight because of all of what we just talked about on the table for them. And I think also playing at home in Los Angeles, being in and around the buzz of this thing for the last 2 weeks, instead of the Bengals who flew in on Tuesday and might be a little bit less kind of pressed down because of the expectations, the pressure, and all of the things that go into Super Bowl week. I could just see a tight Rams team keeping the door open for the Bengals to win, and then Joe Burrow kicking down the door.
Yeah, definitely all of the pressure is on the Rams to win. And so that brings me to another question. Do you think that the Bengals are like here to stay, or is this kind of like they just caught lightning in the bottle, the right mix of non-dominant AFC contenders that were ripe for the pickings, or is this the beginning of what is going to be a run for the Bengals?
So I think it's going to be a little from column A, a little from column B. I don't think we'll ever see the Bengals go back to 2-14 or 4-12 or being the awful Bengals that they were prior to getting Joe Burrow, or even last season, they only won 4 games. I think that era is over. Once you have Burrow, you have Jamar Chase, you have this defense that's coming up in some big spots. I think they're good. They're just going to be a playoff caliber team until further notice. Do I think we're going to see them in the Super Bowl every year? I don't, because I do think things have to break your way in an AFC that's absolutely loaded. And think about it. The 1 seed had to be the Titans, who, let's face it, were a little dicey to begin with. The Chiefs had to blow a 21-3 lead and not get any points at the end of the first half and really play muddled football in the second half. The Chargers and that great young quarterback, Justin Herbert, have to miss the playoffs in the final week of the season, final game of the season. The Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen could have hosted the AFC title game, and maybe that game is different if Cincinnati's got to go to Buffalo. Josh Allen was phenomenal. They lose because they lose a coin toss, going into overtime at Arrowhead Stadium. It's just there's going to be so many hurdles in this AFC. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens riddled by injuries this year. There's going to be so many hurdles to get over. I don't expect any of those AFC teams to have a run where we see them in the Super Bowl 4 out of 5 years or something like that. I mean, just look what happened to the Chiefs this last 2 seasons. But I do think the Bengals are really competitive from here on out.
Yeah. I can having a quarterback wide receiver connection like they have now is definitely one of the best ways to ensure you're going to at least remain respectable. So, just looking at this season on a whole, when all is said and done, what is going to be your biggest takeaway from the overall and entire NFL season?
The rise of the young quarterbacks. Look at these guys. Perhaps the best playoff game of the last 30 years was Bills and Chiefs. And it was just 2 heavyweight fighters throwing knockout blows between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Man, the Bills are going to be really good. Look at what they did to the Patriots. They're going to be really good for a while now. The Chiefs aren't going anywhere. They're too loaded. They're too talented. Mahomes, when he's right, is just so dynamic. I think that this Bengals team, like I just said, here to stay as well, young Joe Burrow. I think Lamar Jackson of the Ravens, supremely dangerous. Herbert should be very, very good as well moving forward. And those are just the guys that are here in the now. What happens if Trevor Lawrence puts this thing together and he's got the right guy now in Jacksonville running things with Doug Peterson, who helped coach Nick Foles to a Super Bowl championship? That's another great young quarterback. In the NFC, Trey Lance is now going to get his shot because the Niners are going to wave goodbye to Jimmy Garoppolo. Justin Fields showed some flashes in Chicago. There is just so many good young quarterbacks, all under the age of 26 or so, that to me, the rise of them as the new kind of standard was fascinating to watch this year. And now that we see Brady retired, Breeze retired a year ago, Rodgers at 38 is getting up there. Man, it's a dawn of a new era with all these QBs.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And it's an exciting time because one of the cool things is very few of those quarterbacks are just purely traditional drop back guys. Most of them have some mobility. So it's a complete changing of the guard. So now let's talk about the offseason preview. We just mentioned one of these quarterbacks. But which direction do you see the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, that whole saga going? So he was kind of, and had some ambiguity to his answer at NFL Honors about what he was thinking and, about the team's future. What do you see the saga going?
Packers want him. Rodgers makes up his mind when he wants to make up his mind. I mean, he's such an impossible guy to try to figure out. I thought all along this season he was going to come back to Green Bay. They give him a great chance to win. Obviously, there was a team that was a 1 seed again. And when they were clicking this year, I mean, they were a devastating offense. So all along, I thought Rodgers is going to stay. It seems like they've kind of wrinkled out some or ironed out some of the wrinkles between their relationships. And yet it came crashing to a halt in the playoffs. Obviously, a sour ending to the postseason. And I think there's got to be part of Aaron Rodgers that wonders about his coach. I mean, Matt LaFleur has had a bye as a 1 or a 2 seed 3 straight years. They haven't even gotten to the Super Bowl. This year, they didn't even win a playoff game. So I think Rodgers could wonder, man, is this the guy? Is this the place? Is this the team? Even though he's got plenty of responsibility in that loss, I think he might look at it completely differently. I think, honestly, the loss, the way that it was, the way that it happened, opened up a door that I didn't think was open. I think he was going to come back, assuming this was a good postseason run for the Packers. The fact that it was one and done and they looked so bad, I think cracks open the door for him to potentially leave. But again, I don't even think he knows right now whether he wants to leave or not.
Yeah, and in the NFL, the players have so little control. Even a player of his stature, of a kind of like engineering a move someplace, he doesn't have as much sway as say a player in the NBA might have in times of kind of just pushing his way someplace. So he's kind of at the mercy of what the Packers want to do, especially at his age. So it's going to be interesting to watch how that unfolds. So besides Rodgers, who's the most interesting player and or team in the offseason as far as a quarterback carousel? So there's a lot of teams that have a quarterback driven storyline on over the offseason. But so outside of Rodgers, who you think has the most interesting angle?
Denver Broncos. That's a team with one of the best defenses in football. That's a team with a really good skill position talent. They've got good young wide receivers. They've got a good young tight end. They've got good running backs. And now they've got Aaron Rodgers, quarterbacks coach from Green Bay. If the Broncos get Rodgers, or if the Broncos get Russell Wilson, or if the Broncos find a way to fix QB, they're fascinating. They're absolutely fascinating because they have all of the pieces seemingly except the QB, and they play in a division where they could really make some noise. I mean, the Chiefs obviously are in the AFC West, so you got to still go through Arrowhead right now. But a great quarterback in Denver makes that division with the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Chargers really, really interesting.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Is there any way at all? I don't know how many layers they would have to go through it, but is there any way at all you could see? Obviously, can't Aaron Rodgers would be like maybe tops on their list. But is there any way at all you see maybe Cam Newton getting any sort of looks in Denver, or do you think he's a Carolina guy only, or out of the league?
I think he's washed up. When he left Carolina, the Panthers had made a pretty declarative statement. We don't think he's got football left, because the Panthers didn't have a better option. They certainly didn't seem like they had this all figured out. Look at what it's been the last 2 years: Bridgewater, Darnold, yada yada yada. Bringing back Cam Newton. Cam then goes to New England, and pretty obviously he was really limited. The Patriots missed the playoffs. Then this past season, he is without a job. He loses the job to a rookie in Mac Jones in training camp of the preseason. He's out of work for most of the year. The only reason the Panthers bring him back is because their quarterback situation is so bad. And again, he kind of falls short. It's nothing against him, because clearly it's not his fault. It's just that his athleticism has eroded, and he's just not the QB that he once was from a physical standpoint. So I just don't see how you can give Cam Newton another look here, because we now have a pretty good sample size that he just doesn't have the skills anymore.
Gotcha. All right, I got a question. You recently tweeted that you like Mike McDaniel the best of any of the coaching hires so far this season. So going obviously to Miami, do you think that the Bills and the Patriots and the Jets have something to worry about going into this season? Because after a while, we know that Brian Flores had this team as a winning team over the last 2 years. There's some stuff there. There's some pieces there. Is this sign that the rest of the division needs to be on notice?
The Dolphins, kind of like what I was just talking about with the Broncos, have one of the most fascinating potentials in the NFL if they fix the quarterback position. Under Brian Flores, they had an excellent defense the last couple of years. And drafting Jalen Waddle, he seems like a real game breaker as a young wide receiver. They certainly have pieces. Last year, they won 10 games. This season, they won 9 games. So they have the talent to win. They just need to fix the offense from the quarterback position, which is why I tweeted I like the Mike McDaniel hire a lot. McDaniel's been a grinder in the NFL, so he's been around the league for 15 years. He's been a coach in San Francisco under one of the best play callers in football in Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a really bright guy. He's Yale educated, but didn't take himself too seriously. He jokes around at press conferences. He kind of, I think, has a really good self-awareness without an ego. I think those are really important qualities to have for an NFL coach these days versus the guys like an Urban Meyer who thinks he's the king of the kingdom. It's my way or the highway. It's, I'm going to drive you into the ground. Not working. Okay. Mike McDaniel goes at it from the opposite direction. So if he can fix Tua, or if they get Deshaun Watson or a different QB, I think the Dolphins have big time potential to make some noise. And in that division that the Patriots owned for 20 years and the rest of the division was roadkill, if the Dolphins get the quarterback situation right, the Patriots are the third best team in that division. I won't put the Jets above them because the Jets are still a mess, but the Jets also have a good young quarterback as well. But I still think if you fix the QB in Miami, that's a playoff team.
If they fix the QB in Miami, is Mac Jones the fourth best quarterback in the division?
I like that take. I never got the Mac Jones hype. They won games, and at times he threw a pretty football. He had everything stacked in his direction. He had a veteran coach that has been there, obviously one of the greats of all time. He had an offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels who had kind of perfected that offense over the last couple of seasons. They spent all of that money in the offseason on free agents, including 2 veteran tight ends and a veteran wide receiver in Algalore. And they had a power running game. I mean, if you can't succeed as a quarterback with all of those pieces, and one of the best defenses in football, well, then you're really terrible. So Mac Jones was serviceable, but I didn't think he was anything great this season.
I can dig it. I can dig it. All right. Last question. Did the Cowboys make a mistake holding on to Mike McCarthy? And do you see a world where Dallas would actually move on from Dak Prescott if next season ends in a disappointment as this season did?
Well, it'd be unfair to say that the Cowboys made a mistake holding on to Mike McCarthy. They made a mistake hiring Mike McCarthy. They should have never hired this bozo. I mean, you look at what happened in Green Bay. He had Aaron Rodgers in his prime and only went to 1 Super Bowl. That should tell you Rodgers never really liked him seemingly in the last couple of years anyway. He gets to Dallas. I know Dak was injured last year, but some head-scratching decisions along the way in a division, by the way, that was won with a 7-9 team.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year, I mean, again, one and done to the playoffs. And were the Cowboys awake for the playoff game? Did their alarm clocks go off? I mean, they were a disaster in the first half. I don't think they should have kept Mike McCarthy around. Not surprising, though, because, Jerry Jones is loyal to his guys. I think he's loyal to Mike McCarthy. I think next year, clearly, if they stumble again, McCarthy's out the door, I would imagine. I don't know about Dak because the thing is, I really like Dak. There's a lot of reasons to like Dak, but if you keep coming up small in the playoffs, it begs the question, are you the right guy? And I wonder if Dak is a little different after that ACL injury. This year he was productive, but he wasn't his explosive self. If it's confidence, you can build that back. If it's physical limitations because of the knee, that's where I work.
Yeah, that is definitely a thing. I mean, that injury is not like a regular sort of injury. That's the kind of injury that you might require, some sort of sports psychologist to continue to deal with, because that just doesn't just go away, and to your point, he, only ran the ball 48 times this year, which is the fewest amount of rushes that he's ever had in a season where he's actually played this many games. So yeah, you're right on the money there. So I appreciate your time today, DA. It was awesome speaking with you. Hopefully we get an opportunity to talk football again in the future.
No doubt, Brad. This was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. You have a great one.